There was a time when divine law was taught through scrolls, temples, and sermons. Now it walks in human form, quiet, alert, aware. You've become the embodiment of that law, not because you claim divinity, but because you live in alignment with something higher than impulse. Your existence itself became a correction to the world's chaos. Every action you take holds consequence measured not by applause but by integrity. You don't speak of righteousness because you don't need to. People feel it when you enter the room, that shift in energy when principle meets presence. You've stopped preaching. You've started embodying. The sacred no longer hides in scriptures, it hides in conduct. And that's what unsettles the shallow. They can't manipulate what stands rooted in truth. You've turned silence into authority. The world bends to that far more than it ever did to words. The mind that learns restraint carries more power than armies. You've discovered that control isn't about dominance, it's about alignment with purpose. When you stopped reacting, the universe started responding. That's how divine law manifests, through calm, through timing, through clarity. Those who once sought to provoke now find themselves confused, unable to breach your stillness. It's not arrogance that protects you. It's order. You've become part of the system that governs chaos. Every choice you make echoes through the unseen, drawing consequences others don't understand. You've learned that divine law rewards precision and punishes excess. It doesn't strike fast. It strikes exactly when the lesson is earned. That's why you don't rush anymore. You move when meaning arrives, and when you move, everything aligns. Most people live detached from order. They follow emotion, worship convenience, and call it freedom. You've walked the opposite path, one of balance. Every trial stripped you of illusion until truth stood bare. That's when you learn divine law doesn't protect the comfortable, it molds the disciplined. It gives tests, not guarantees. It doesn't reward prayer, it rewards transformation. Every challenge you faced was calibration. You were never being punished, you were being shaped into a vessel strong enough to carry purpose. And now, the strength you've built radiates quietly. It humbles the reckless and steadies the lost. You didn't set out to be their guide, but law doesn't ask for permission to act through those aligned with it. You became order without speaking of it. The reason divine law doesn't need to be spoken anymore is because the world stopped listening to words. It listens to results. It studies conduct. You've noticed how people mimic what works, not what's preached. That's why your composure has become magnetic. You don't chase validation. You command respect through consistency. That is how universal truth teaches now, through living examples, not lectures. You no longer argue about morality because reality already proves your principles correct. Divine law isn't carved in stone, it's carved in consequence. Every action carries a signature, and your signature is discipline. You've become a reminder that order is not oppression. It's the foundation of peace. The dangerous beauty of divine alignment is that it isolates you. When you become order in a world built on chaos, you become misunderstood. People project arrogance onto peace, superiority onto silence. But those reactions are proof of their own disorder. You no longer fight misunderstandings because the law doesn't explain. It reveals. Over time, truth proves itself. You've learned patience not for others, but for balance. The one who carries divine rhythm must never rush to match the world's tempo. That restraint makes you appear untouchable, but it's not distance. It's discipline. You no longer bend to comfort, you move according to calling. That's why peace follows you even in storms. The storm is only violent to those untrained in its rhythm. What others call intuition is simply communion with law. You've tuned yourself to recognize timing that others miss. You act when others hesitate, and you wait when others panic. That synchronization gives your presence weight. You don't need to convince anyone of your insight. People sense it. They feel safety in your stillness and fear in your silence. The human mind, when disconnected from truth, misreads certainty as threat. You've seen it happen repeatedly. How calm provokes insecurity. Yet you stay composed, because law doesn't negotiate with perception. It just keeps working. You've learned to let your results carry the message. Divine order doesn't announce itself. It moves unseen, but when it arrives, everything aligns or collapses according to truth. It's strange how the sacred now wears mortal skin. You no longer think in terms of reward or punishment, only cause and effect. You've transcended superstition. The divine doesn't demand worship, it demands awareness. Awareness of what each thought builds, what each word seeds, what each decision shapes. You've become mindful in ways that unsettle others. You see the ripple in every interaction. That precision is what makes you powerful. Not mystical, not unreachable, just awake. And in a world half asleep, that alone is revolutionary. The law flows through you like pulse, invisible but undeniable. You don't perform goodness. You embody consequence. And people who cross that can't explain why their energy collapses. They just feel it. What used to drain you no longer affects you because divine order doesn't operate on emotion. It operates on equilibrium. You've become immune to chaos because you learned to balance inside it. The loud no longer intimidates the focused. The unpredictable no longer disrupts the prepared. That's the secret the world refuses to see. Divine favor doesn't come through prayer alone. It comes through precision. The universe respects structure. You built yours through pain, patience, and self-control. That's why your presence feels heavy now. It's the weight of law in motion, justice walking upright, silent yet absolute. You didn't chase divine favor. You became its vessel. There's an unspoken power that comes from walking aligned. You no longer fear outcomes because you understand rhythm. When something fails, you see the correction, not the curse. When something succeeds, you see responsibility, not celebration. That level of awareness transforms destiny into design. Nothing feels accidental anymore. You operate with calm certainty, not because you control everything, but because you've learned how to cooperate with what's already written. Divine law isn't about predicting the future. It's about matching the frequency that creates it. That's why your moves look supernatural to those still fighting gravity. You're not levitating, you're obeying laws others ignore. The moment the room fell silent, control shifted. The loudest voices still echoed, desperate to fill the space, but the power had already moved elsewhere. To the one who didn't need to speak, stillness carried its own gravity. Every motionless second began to rearrange the air, turning noise into confession. The calm one didn't fight for space, didn't compete for acknowledgement. Silence was the weapon, and composure was the trigger. The crowd didn't realize it yet, but the hierarchy had changed. Stillness wasn't submission. It was evaluation. It was the quiet before revelation. In that pause, truth began to separate from performance. The restless felt it first, the uncomfortable awareness that their energy had lost direction. Stillness had claimed the center. And from that point onward, control no longer belonged to the loud. It belonged to the still. There's a certain authority that only silence can hold. Words can be argued with, but stillness cannot be debated. It forces the restless to confront themselves. It turns confidence into questions and pride into discomfort. Stillness is a mirror that reveals who has peace and who has panic. The one who stays still while others unravel becomes the unspoken leader of the room. No announcement needed. No explanation given. Energy reorganizes around calm the way gravity bends space. The world in its chaos always yields to those who remain unmoved. That is the nature of command. It doesn't shout orders. It emits certainty. Stillness becomes a form of law, the kind that requires no enforcement, only presence. When everything else is frantic, calm becomes the rarest currency. Long ago, power was mistaken for motion. The faster one spoke, the more serious one was taken. But time reveals the opposite. Motion without direction creates fatigue, not progress. Stillness, however, calculates. It studies the rhythm of panic, the habits of distraction, the patterns of decay. It watches without wasting. The one who learns stillness doesn't fall behind. They learn the art of timing. Because control is not about speed. It's about when to move and when not to. Stillness is the pause before precision, the inhale before the strike. It creates discomfort in others because they cannot predict when the quiet will turn to action. That unpredictability is command. Stillness carries the tension of a loaded weapon, the power to act, restrained by choice. The world has forgotten the weight of restraint. Constant motion has become the new addiction, a performance of productivity masking a lack of direction. Stillness, however, carries a different kind of intelligence. It reads before reacting. It listens to what others miss. It waits not out of fear, but out of certainty. The calm one doesn't need to prove control, because control is already visible in the way their energy doesn't leak. The mind anchored in silence hears what chaos conceals. While others chase attention, stillness observes consequence. And when the moment of action comes, the calm one doesn't move with emotion. They move with inevitability. That's what separates command from compulsion. Power, real power, doesn't chase outcomes. It attracts them by being too grounded to be moved by noise. Stillness in the midst of attack is what terrifies opponents the most. Rage expects reaction. Anger feeds on escalation. But when faced with calm, aggression collapses. The calm one stands like stone, reading every movement, every word, every attempt to provoke. Stillness breaks the rhythm of chaos. It creates imbalance in the aggressor. Because conflict, like fire, needs oxygen. Silence removes it. That's why calm often wins wars that words could never end. Stillness doesn't surrender. It suffocates instability. The more chaotic the attack, the quieter the defense becomes, until the attacker starts to question their own strength. That's the true art of psychological warfare. Command through composure. The calm one controls the pace, dictates the tone, and decides the ending without lifting a hand. In leadership, stillness commands loyalty. The impulsive inspire fear, the calm inspire trust. Those who remain still in uncertainty send a message stronger than reassurance. They embody faith. Their presence tells others that panic serves no purpose. Stillness stabilizes those nearby, turning confusion into clarity. That's how authority grows, not through force but through reliability. Stillness doesn't beg to be followed. It creates gravity. People move toward it naturally, searching for the anchor in the storm. Every great commander, every strategist, every philosopher learned this. The moment one becomes still, the world begins to orbit differently. Leadership isn't in speech, it's in composure. Words may motivate for a moment, but stillness sustains for a lifetime. Stillness and fear cannot coexist. Fear lives in motion, in pacing, overthinking, performing. Stillness kills it by refusing to participate. The mind that learns to pause becomes the most dangerous weapon of all. It stops reacting, starts calculating. Every emotion gets filtered through clarity before expression. That kind of awareness changes outcomes. It turns potential chaos into opportunity. When stillness meets adversity, the equation flips. The event no longer dictates the reaction defines the event. Stillness rewrites reality from the inside out. It changes posture, thought, presence. It makes one appear untouchable not because of power but because of peace. In a world addicted to reaction, the one who remains unmoved becomes a mystery. And mystery is influence. Even nature obeys stillness. The ocean looks calm until it chooses to rise. The wind pauses before it changes direction. The earth stays silent before it shifts. That's how power hides, in patience. Stillness doesn't deny motion, it controls it. It gathers strength instead of wasting it. The person who learns this doesn't need to announce transformation. The silence between moves becomes the message. Those who are loud confuse noise for impact. Those who are still understand that impact happens in quiet moments. The decision made alone, the emotion mastered in private, the plan refined before execution. Stillness is strategy disguised as serenity. It's not weakness. It's the prelude to inevitability. Stillness also carries danger. It provokes the insecure, exposes the restless, threatens the manipulative. Because those who feed on control cannot dominate what doesn't respond, the quiet presence becomes an unsolvable equation. Every attempt to provoke fails. Every effort to unsettle meets an immovable wall. Stillness strips illusions bare. It's psychological interrogation without words. When one remains composed amid chaos, truth reveals itself. Others start confessing through their actions. Stillness forces honesty from the dishonest and reflection from the arrogant. That's why stillness commands. It doesn't confront, it exposes. And exposure is the purest form of power.